Welcome to Extinct Disney Ride Lore. Today we'll be covering specifically the Magic Kingdom version of Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. You can still experience this attraction at Disneyland in California, but the rise and fall of the Florida version is very interesting, especially since it foreshadowed how the Disney parks would operate in the future. But before we get into the video, I just want to tell you guys that I started a Patreon. So if you enjoy my channel and want to help it grow, consider subscribing. But without further ado, let's get into what made Mr. Toad's ride so wild. Based off the 1908 children's book The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame, Disney would make its own adaptation of his stories in 1949 with Ichabod and Mr. Toad's animated movie. They would parlay the success of that film into an opening day Disneyland attraction on July 17, 1955. And just like its California counterpart, Magic Kingdom in Florida would get their version on their opening day of October 1st, 1971. What made Florida's version stand out was that it was a two-track system, meaning riders were either loaded into a track A or B. Their adventure would be different depending on which side they embarked on. Before both sides ending in their cartoonishly grisly end at the hands of an oncoming train, the ride was praised for not being a cookie-cutter family-friendly ride like other Fantasyland attractions such as It's a Small World and Peter Pan's Flight. It certainly wasn't afraid to push the envelope with suggestive paintings of women, alcohol use, and of course, demonic creatures. But what made Mr. Toad stand out also made it easier to cut since it was more of an obscure franchise. On October 22nd of 1997, an article from the Atlanta Sentinel would send fans of the Toad into a tailspin. Rumors of a Winnie the Pooh attraction where Mr. Toad sat would ultimately ring true, but we as Disney fans would take the news with grace and certainly not cause a stir over one of our favorites being torn down, is what I would say. We as Disney fans understand that the parks are always in a state of flux. When we lose a beloved attraction, it's almost like losing the memories that come along with it. And in the mid to late 90s, we saw a lot of our favorites taken away from us. Horizons and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea closed in 94, along with World of Motion in 96. Journey into Imagination would follow suit in 98 as well. It's safe to say losing another fan favorite in such a short period of time would cause some friction, and literally the day after this article was printed, the Save the Toad protest began. Two Toad superfans would launch a website and mailing list to give updates to everyone who was interested in the goings-on in the Toad vs. Pooh drama. Even going as far as posting the names and addresses of Disney execs, which was definitely a step too far. Jeff Mascot, who launched the site, would also call guest services and pleaded for them not to close the ride because it would break his children's heart, while in reality, Jeff had no kids at the time. They even had someone try to sneak into Disney headquarters but was turned away because he was dressed like a tourist. Letters to the editor would pour into local newspapers, with one such recounting of a family in Fort Lauderdale who was concerned over a message on their answering machine their son left while attending UCF University. Once they were able to reach him, all he kept saying was they're gonna close Mr. Toad. And if you think that's almost the end of the hysteria, you'd be wrong, because on December 6th of 1997, the Save the Toad movement was on the front page of the Miami Herald. The following day after the distribution of the newspaper, the first ever Toad-In occurred in Magic Kingdom. Dozens of fans would gather outside the attraction making custom green t-shirts with different slogans on them. The two most popular were Ask Mickey Why He's Unaliving Mr. Toad and Tell Pooh to Go to Heck. The group would even fund a plane to fly a Save the Mr. Toad banner over Magic Kingdom. Disney would have plainclothes security near the group at all times, but nothing ever escalated past a protester stopping random people to talk about Mr. Toad. As the days went on, the movement only grew, and on September 1st of 1998, Disney confirmed our worst nightmares, as Winnie the Pooh would get the deed to Toad's Hall in just 6 days. The protesters were there every day and had one last celebration on the last day Mr. Toad was open. When originally envisioned, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride was set to become a roller coaster. Disney ultimately decided against it since the company wanted attractions that would be suitable for children and the elderly to partake in. To this point, the Matterhorn in Disneyland was the only roller coaster for either coast. Space Mountain would be the first roller coaster in Disney World, which wouldn't open until 1975. Unlike other dark rides in Fantasyland at the time, Mr. Toad was not a retelling of the film or book it was based off of. While some concepts may have been borrowed from the source material, the ending in particular was entirely an original Disney concept, so the adult theming at the end sequence was purely from Disney Imagineering. And finally, Mr. Toad may be gone, but he's certainly not forgotten. You could see him on 3 other attractions, starting with the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh. There's a picture of him handing over the deed to Toad Hall to Owl in an early scene. Also in the same attraction, you could see a picture in Owl's house of Pooh and Mr. Toad's friend Molly saying hi to each other. In the Magic Kingdom, after you exit the Haunted Mansion, you could see a statue of Mr. Toad in the Pet Cemetery, with an inscription underneath reading, "Here lies Mr. Toad, sad but true, not nearly as profitable as Winnie the Pooh." Damn, they're not even trying to hide it. And in Disneyland on the Storybook Land canal boats, there are 3 references to Mr. Toad. The loading area has an entire mural dedicated to Mr. Toad and all of his characters. And while on the ride, you could see Mr. Toad's best friend Molly's house, as well as the infamous Toad Hall itself. But that'll do it for this episode. Let me know if you want me to cover more lore from extinct rides in the future. I know there's some overlap with my Mr. Toad vs. Winnie the Pooh video. That was my first long-form video I ever made, so this is just a little update with more detail on the Mr. Toad side. I hope you found this video informative, and hopefully you guys like these backstory videos as much as I like making them. But until next time, drop a like if you enjoyed this, subscribe if I earned it, join the Patreon only if you can, and thank you for watching.